All right.
Keisha,
Hello, hello.
hello.
Yes. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, me too.
I've been looking forward to this and I've been excited about this since before the book came out. Just like hearing you talking about it. Um really it's really lived up to all of the teases that you were posting on Facebook. I mean, this is a play worker's Bible right here. I mean,
Thank
every
you.
everybody who's working with children, play based or not, needs to have this book. I'm so ready to dig into it and talk about what parts of it really lit me up. Even after working with children as long as I have, there's
Mm-hmm.
so much useful information in here,
Mm-hmm.
and I just want to tell you that before we get started. So I'm
Oh,
really
wow. Well, thank you. Thank you. No, that means a lot and come from you and all the stuff that you do, living it every day. So yeah, it's like, okay, how can we take that and put it out there and then help people to take deep breaths and try it themselves in little ways.
hmm and I think that's what you do so well. You tell it like it is, and then you have that balance of understanding and meeting people where they are and kind of giving them big bits of information and little bits of information to help everybody wherever they are be able to digest these ideas. And I think that's why this book is going to be helpful for someone who's been working with children for many many years and someone who's just starting out, because you have a way of meeting people where they are with such a gentleness. Like, I feel like you are the Mr. Rogers of adventure play. That's
I
the little
like it.
which I see you, Rusty.
Thank you. All right, I'll take that. It's a lot to live up to. Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Where everybody deals with these questions, right, on a day-to-day basis in their heart of what they love play. If they're working with kids, they love play, and they want kids to play, but then things make them nervous, and then they want to stop it because they want to protect kids. But we all have that, but we all want to move the needle a little further and think how we can say yes more wherever we're at. And that's what I say. It's like I'm so happy wherever anybody is. It's great, and the work is super hard and challenging and beautiful, and I honor what everyone's doing, and then we just want to celebrate play more.
yes, yes. And find that yes, what is your yes? I think what as I was reading the book, what resonated with me is how much you seem to understand that this is a lot of self-work for the adults who are caring for the children. There's a lot of internal dialogue, a lot of reaching back into your own culture and philosophy and way that you were raised and things that you've experienced. So it really honors how important our stuff that we come with is to our own individual process, and it can be used by many many different people in many many different ways. I just when I first opened the book, one of the earlier pages, can I read just a piece from it?
Yeah.
This was a part that I was like, oh, Rusty is just really telling it like it is. Like, play is a biological need and a necessity for healthy development. Point blank, period. Freely chosen, child directed play should be an unalienable right of all children everywhere. So many times I read books and it's feels like they're playing with the idea of play, but you are not playing. You mean what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It should be supported, celebrated, honored, and allowed. We should listen to children. We should provide for their needs. We should work our hardest to support and lift up the beauty and wonder and wildness that is children's play. I mean, the honesty and straightforwardness in that. I have read a lot of books, and I feel like this is the first time that it was just right bam in your face. Like, this is fact. It's a great way to start up the book. you know, it's a wonderful way to start up the book, and
Thank
and
you.
it's a starting agreement. You know, if we can all agree on that, I think making those little strides and those nuances and asking ourselves those questions with that as our starting space is always going to be good. It's always, you know, each day is always going to be better. Each occurrence when a child makes us is going to always lead us to a little bit more yes, because if we believe in what you said at the very beginning of this book, if we start from there, no matter where we are in our comfort zone, if we start from there, we will be doing what's right for children. And so starting the book out like that was just, it was a home run for me. From that point, I was like, oh, this is going to be good.
All right. Yeah, the play manifesto.
Yes, I even love the title of that. I was like, I'm in. Where do I sign up? So another thing that is striking to me is the photos of junky spaces and like overgrown, and not just the risk in the play, but the risk in providing spaces like that for children. So I thought it was, and still think it is very important to have that be out there and have that become more of the norm than very manicured spaces. So I appreciate your work in getting that out to more people and to the masses, so that it's normal, you know, it's just a normal place where children play versus the shock that, you know, some people feel when they see environments like that for children.
Yeah, I like that. Normalizing it, making it feel like, yeah, this is a children's space. And, you know, it's interesting because my first book, Natural Playscapes, I was about, okay, let's connect kids to nature. We want to put children in beautiful spaces and flowers and gardens and, you know, all that stuff. And then this is more like just get the junk out there and let kids do their own thing, and the mess and the mud and all that. Yeah.
That's beautiful though, because I feel like that's kind of the journey that a lot of people take. And to be able to see your journey through that, not leaving behind the beauty, not leaving behind flowers and gardens, but saying that this is beautiful too, and those two things can coexist, right? In one space. So it's just amazing. That's all I can say. I'm going to say that a lot today.
All right. Thank you. Well, so your pictures and your center are, you know, shining example of this kind of stuff happening. And can I read you a part from the book?
Yes, you can.
About yours. I kind of like that picture. In fact, let me just show. I'm going to share a screen real quick.
Okay.
And we will look at. Oh, maybe I'm not going to be able to do this. Let's see. Share. Open system preferences. Yeah, I have this issue. More technical difficulties. But I will find the passage anyway. Okay. Of your center. And one of my favorite parts of the book is where it gets to, you know, the real centers doing the real stuff. And there's a picture of yours. All right, I'm just going to get out of there, not share screens. Go here. Oh, well, I can look at this. I guess I can hold the book up. So there it is. Is this your Discovery Early Learning Center Part 1, number 1, or?
Well, we're in Discovery 3 now, so that's Discovery 2.
This is 2. Okay, yeah. So I love this picture. So I wrote, I can't say enough how cool I think this yard is. I mean, look at it. Have they ever mown their grass? I don't think so. It's the best. This is what grass is supposed to look like, especially if you ask grass. It's also what early childhood centers can look like when they push past the pressure of yards looking tidy or proper in the eyes of adults. Is it a vacant lot, a junkyard, a risky environment for children? Yup. I showed some of these pictures once to a group of licensing regulators, and they stopped me to ask if I was saying this was good or bad. I said good. And they said, oh, okay. And we continued with the presentation. They ended up loving it too and seeing the deep value of an environment like this. The old way of looking at yards in quick, sweeping glances might discount a place like this as inappropriate or dangerous or something. But now, when we take more careful looks and reflect on children's true play needs, we see that a space like this is a living, breathing child's habitat, overflowing with wildness and life and magical possibilities for play, creation, imagination, challenge, risk, everything. I say it's a little slice of adventure play heaven.
And I read that in your voice. I laughed when you talked about the grass, because I had there was a guy who used to come every once in a while and, you know, pull the grass back a little bit, and he would always say, you know, I can make this look like a golf course. And I was like, no. You know, I would say, don't cut there, don't cut there, don't cut there, you could trim over here a little bit. And one day I let him chop it all off. I think I was just wanted to refresh. Bad idea. The children came in. I got in trouble. I mean, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
What? And one of the kids said, do you know that grass that used to be right here? You know, that long grass? Where did it go? Did you cut it down? Oh, I got in trouble. And that was it. That was it. It provides such a magical oasis. That space started out as, like you said, a vacant lot. It was gravel. So I just want people to know that you can create these spaces for children where there is nothing. You can be, and it doesn't have to be big. It really doesn't. Because thinking back to my own childhood, you know, you would be like playing in forests or creeks, or my cousin had about 3 rows of bamboo in her backyard, and we thought we were in a vast forest in China. So the perspective of children to adult is very different. So it's not a matter of needing this huge space. This can be accomplished in some cities, you know? So it was a vacant lot. It was gravel. We pushed the gravel aside. We rolled in dirt. Some sumac trees started growing, and we had a jungle. And it was amazing. And yeah, it was a junkyard, and it was magical. And the opportunity for loose parts and big movement and uneven terrain and an ownership over a space that really the children developed. You know, you have these materials that they can move around and sculpt the environment. And that's just, it's just where the risk is right on the cusp, just right at the tip of the ability of the children, right? Because they're not going to out-risk themselves. Typical children just don't. And I learned that the more I observed children, how great at assessing they are. And I should be clear to say, children who are used to having these opportunities. So, yeah, children who have been trusted. Yes, children who have been trusted in many ways, not necessarily just trusted with outdoor risky play, but children who have been trusted with other forms of bodily autonomy, right? They have this sense that they're responsible for themselves, and they have this this deep innate ability to assess. I watch children do it all the time. They build up something, they don't just jump on it. They shake that thing, they put their foot on it, they maybe step up a little bit, and they readjust. So observing them trust themselves and use those tools really helped with my inner, that feeling that we get sometimes. It really helps. So my advice to people is to really observe, watch what they do before we freak out. And there was a lot of that in the book. You did a really good job of walking people through those steps of how you could do that. There was another quote in the book that I think kind of pertains to this. Hold on. Where was it?
I like what you said about kids not wanting to out-risk themselves. Yeah.
They really don't. And children who are exposed to this type of play have far less injuries. and this isn't just made up by me, like this was researched fairly recently, when looking at children at recess in more traditional playground settings where things are staying in one place, like
Mm-hmm.
gigantic climbers, versus children who are in more junkyard style playgrounds. The accidents are far less. It just, the children are just more physically capable,
Mm-hmm.
because of, like I said, having to use their bodies to create. I mean, they know their space. They made it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I
Right.
always say, there's stuff everywhere all the time. And I always say, the children don't trip over this stuff. They can glide from one end of this playground to the other like a gazelle. The adults need to watch their step, because we don't know where stuff is.
Yeah. I visited adventure playgrounds, and there was one in Berlin, and it's all these wild kid-built structures with boards and nails and everything. And they said kids don't get hurt here, but there are injuries, and they said most of the injuries are people taking tours and bonking into stuff.
Yes.
Because they're not aware of it.
Yep.
The kids know, they pounded in all those nails.
Yep.
And they know where it's strong and they know where it's not strong, and they know what to look out for.
They sure do.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, observing a child in that environment teaches you so much about them. And I used to do birthday parties at the old school, so I would get children who never experienced.
Mm-hmm.
It may be like a discovery child who then invited friends that went to the school and friends that didn't go to the school.
Yeah.
And for me, the fun was observing the differences, like, of the children who knew the environment and who built the environment and who worked up those fine different muscles and understandings about their body, versus children who have never been in an environment like that. They were all equally excited to be there, but you could see the ownership and the dexterity and the capability and the critical thinking of the children who were used to such an environment. So it just reinforces to me how important that is for children. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, Rusty, but my childhood was, before I knew about adventure playgrounds, we grew up in an adventure playground. We created our own. We had a forest in the front of our apartment complex, and behind our apartment was a creek. And we didn't have much financially, but I had a rich childhood of outdoor freedom. We took risks that now I'm not advocating for some of the risks. Of course. My goodness, I don't know how I have legs. I was crazy. I was a risk taker. I jumped from anything high. I was ready to jump, climb up and jump down. I rode bikes down steps and all kinds of crazy things. But thinking back and like trying to put myself, not thinking back as an adult, but trying to put myself back into my childhood body. If I could describe the feeling, I felt like I needed to do it, almost like I had to do it. There was an innate something inside me as a person that needed to try those things. So what drives me is I want to create a space where children can do that safely, where children can do that in an environment that has been assessed and has been hazards have been removed, but that risk, that I guess that feeling of riskiness and that feeling of taking a challenge can still be felt by children, and they can have their legs when they grow up still.
Well, I think that's what it feels like when I see the pictures of what's the action that's happening in your yards, is that it feels like it's wildness and it's free ranging and it's roaming, and the kids are that have that kind of freedom. And yet it's within your fenced in area, where you need to, you're following playground safety guidelines, et cetera, and you're there supervising. And yet when you see the action that's happening, it's as if it was just the children having their own experience and you allowing it to happen. And that's huge. And it feels like, that's what children have always children have, and throughout history, human history, but children grow, and they pack animals together, and they help each other in mixed ages, and that they're learning from the older, and the older can be nurturing the younger, and they're doing these things and stretching as humans, as, growing. Like you talked about that drive. I think,
Yes.
maybe you had a little extra drive than,
Yeah, I think I
than
have
the rest
one.
of us. I think so. But still, the drive to explore and experiment and do and play, and whether it's fun or adventure or daring. And then for kids who don't have that, like what are ramifications of that, or what happens, or are they more timid, or we don't know. I mean, these, yeah.
And I was gonna say, even in my observation of the children over the years that I've been working in this way, even children who are timid in personality, they explore the adventure playground in ways like, remember we said they meet their own cusp. That's the thing. Every child of every ability can benefit from this. And it's not a predetermined limit of risk, or like, this is risky enough or this isn't risky enough. A risk could be the child even asking to play, or the child jumping over a puddle or step. I mean, I have a child who started and wanted nothing to do with touching anything, any of that. Is like, what in the world is happening here? And going from that to, okay, well, I'll put my finger in this mud, and looking at it and just having his own process. To yesterday, literally, my children decided to have a mud festival, like head to toe, brown mud suits, and he was in the bunch. So it's just, that is a risk, that's a risky play thing. Maybe not to the most risky child who will climb something high and jump off, but to the child who would just touch with his finger, deciding to join into the mud festival and taking the risk of possibly getting mud on him. It's not just the Kisha, jumping off of crazy things risks that are important. Even the social risks of play, in any kind of play, are important for children to experience. Something you said before kind of brought me to the next part of the book that I loved, that I'd like to read. This here is big for me. Like, it's big for me, and what I try to not do, or try to, not do. Play workers try not to adulterate the play. Big for me. Sometimes it could be just where your body is. And also knowing your kids. Some of my kids, I could stand right next to them and they're so deep in their play, you could think I don't exist. Other children, if I get anywhere near their box, it pulls them right out of their play and like into me, or, it just alters things. So I know, or at least try to do my best at knowing where to position myself, how to engage and not to engage, when to engage and not to engage. That is, they don't mess with it. They don't mess with it.
Yeah.
They don't try to change the play. They don't narrate the play. They don't look for teachable moments. Gosh, you could bust so many play bubbles. Their only adult agenda is to support play. Adulterating play alters the play and can wreck it. It is the play about the is the play about the children, or is it about the adult? Is it about us? Oh my goodness gracious. I'm going to put this on a poster, and I'm going to put it on a billboard.
There we go.
Because you get a different outcome. You really, really do. And I don't know. You have to see it to believe it. You have to do it to really see what you get when you step outside of it, when you need to be outside of it, and you're careful about your dance when you're in it.
It is a dance. Subtle. Yeah.
It is art. It really is.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I love about this work, that it's self-work and it's challenging, and it's a science and an art, but it's organic. So it's ever changing. As the child changes, the way we are with them might change. It's not stagnant, ever changing, and it's lifelong learning. And to me, that's risky. That's adventurous.
Yeah. Well, like you said, they're on the cusp, but so are we as the adults who are supporting it. And it's improv, and it is so subtle of what we do, and then you can feel like, oh, I went too far, and I messed it up. And that's the worst feeling when you feel that, or you reflect on that. And
I like the part in your book where you were narrating that some
Oh yeah.
situations. Yes, because we have that voice, and I don't know if everybody does, but I think we all should. I have that voice, and you're kind of having that self-talk, and that reflection piece is so important. And it's okay, we're going to mess up over and over again, but that's where the learning is. Just like the children, right? They're going to mess up. They may step on something that's wonky and they may fall, but I bet you the next time they're going to put that thing up and make sure it's sturdy. Like, that's a part of the learning. So sometimes stopping them from, obviously we're not going to let a child really get hurt, but stopping them from minor boo-boos, or walking on something that might be wobbly could do more harm than good. Because if you never fall and you never, no one ever lets you make the mistake, you don't learn to be more careful the next time. You learn to expect that someone else would do that job for you. So yeah.
Somebody else doing all your risk assessment for you.
Yep. And then when will you learn to do it, right? So I just read the book like this.
Yeah.
Yes. And then there are wonderful resources in there. The assessment tools, just lots of wonderful visuals that I think can be used over and over and over again in different situations. This is not a one-time read book. This is a book that you read. It took me a long time because I would read some and then like reflect on it and think about it and then read some. And then I tend to get excited, close the book, put it down, like write stuff down, and then go back. And this book did that for me.
Awesome.
I know you said you were doing a book club, right? It's well structured for a book club, for like a workshop kind of book club. So
a lot of thought-provoking things along the way. Okay, well, yeah, we should get involved in something like that. Yeah.
All about it.
Yeah. So I mean, I have some questions for you. And one, going back, is like the idea of like what the teacher's role is, or the educator, the caregiver, and often as adults we feel like we're supposed to be doing something, right? Teachers, you see them like whether it's the teachable moment or narrating the play, or the idea of stepping back where they might feel like, oh, they're not doing anything. But like when you're on the edge of the improv, you're ready to jump in, or you see what little subtle thing that you can do. And it's funny because I've worked with a lot of places and I've seen to do designs and stuff, and you see a whole range of teaching styles, and then a whole range of like what the administration is saying of like, no, teachers, you have to be involved in the play, you have to be, whereas some teachers might be taking a break, oh, they're playing, so I'm taking a break. And maybe that's to support risky play, maybe that's okay, but then some administration wants to see like involvement, and that can be great, of course, but it's different than this idea of the free flow of play and letting it go where it flows.
I'm a weirdo because I'm like, get away from them. Stop immersing that bubble, because like we said before, it really changes things. It's just, if you watch through the lens of how is my presence altering or shifting the play, I think that will help us to decide when and how to move and where, and the subtle things that we can add to the play without altering the play. And some of it is you have to strip back expectations, right? Because if we're coming forward with expectations of what we want the play to look like, or where we want it to go, or what we want it to be, then we're messing with it. Whether we're consciously doing it or not, we're messing with it, right? And it could be we want it to be more risky, or we want it to be more fun, we want it to be more messy. We're still messing with it. What excites me is I'm so curious about like, what will the children actually do? So that helps me to not mess with it, because I want to know what they're going to do. Like, I'm really into that. So that fills me up. And I think the hard part for some educators is they feel less valuable. They feel less full, because what fills them up is the participation, is the playing along with, which I do sometimes, but it's, when it makes sense.
I think the play workers say when you're invited in.
Yes.
To play, when you get to play cues,
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and I'll save this last one. There's another quote I have. I'm gonna save it.
Okay. Well, let me ask then, when you're talking with teachers or new teachers or staff, how do you get this across? What do you tell them?
Okay. So what I do normally at the beginning when I have a new teacher is, instead of having them go in and, you know, without any direction or with a bunch of direction, I just say, all right, let's say I'm sending them outside, or I'm going to send you outside with these educators to observe. Here's some paper. Just write down everything you see, anything that sparks interest to you. And I just have them, like, they're instructed to do nothing, just sit back and observe and watch and write. And after that, we come together and we talk about it. And it ends up being such a dynamic conversation. And it always turns out that they notice things that they never noticed before, or that the conversation brings up things that it's just like an aha moment. 9 times out of 10 when I do this, that I think it innately gives that spin on the work some value. They realize that, oh, you know, I was always in the play, so I never got to see how it looked from the outside. I have this thing that I call the play bubbles, right? The observation bubbles. So it's like observing from, you know, one-on-one or small group interaction, and then stepping back and maybe observing a group of children playing where you're outside of it, and then stepping back and observing multiple groups interacting, cross-interacting, and then stepping all the way back and watching the whole thing work. And we do exercises where we observe from different places. We talk about, cool. Yeah, so we really, you know, practice, because it's that self-work. I don't think there's anything that I can say to someone that is going to rush them along the journey. You know, I don't think that there's anything I can say to them that's gonna make them see it from my lens. That's not necessarily my goal, but my goal is to say, we start from that first quote we said at your book, you know, that agreement. And then we're always working and questioning and reflecting from a place of the second quote of not adulterating the play. And if you follow that stream, you end up in a place where you value your position as an observer, as a play facilitator, as sometimes a player, but you don't need to alter the play because you don't desire it anymore. You see the value in what's happening. It's not even... It's not a desire. So that's what I do.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, I like connecting those dots about like what do you value, and, you know, the play, children's freedom, you know, and setting that as the foundation, and then saying, we as adults, we don't want to mess that up.
Yeah.
And our job is to support that, stand back and observe, or feed it as necessary, but not to mess it up, because that's what we're holding up. I mean, we're on the same page there. That's what we're holding up, is like the beauty and the importance of childhood and the opportunity. And yeah.
Another big part of our role is translating that language and culture of childhood to their parents and to the community, so that this space and this time in their lives can be valued as a whole, society-wise. You know, I feel like there is very little room for authentic, natural childhood on this, I want to say on this earth. There's very little room for that. You know, we try to tame it. We try to school it out of them. We try to punish it out of them, trick it out of them. But how wonderful would the world be if we held space and understood this time in human development? How different could things be? So there's I think I should share this last quote.
Okay.
From the, I think the chapter is called, or the section is called, "The World is Upside Down." You remember this?
Oh yeah.
Look, it's hard to remember everything you wrote.
That's right.
We flipped the spiritual meaning of life. Instead of focusing on love, compassion, gratitude, awareness, and permanence, we began focusing on the material world, jobs, wealth, things, etc. And that desire for and chasing of those things has caused us great suffering. It is our journey to turn the world back right side up. And as cheesy as it may sound, I wholeheartedly believe that allowing children to experience unbridled, free, unadulterated, child-led, adventurous play could save the world. It could save the world. It could shift our values. And that's why it is important to make room for it, to normalize it. I think that was big. Happiness, human happiness is developed through play. Humanness is developed through play.
Potential, it's all there. The world is out there to explore and experience and wonder and imagine. And how do we allow that? It's blossoming. And for the adult who gets it, what a ride, what an honor to be a witness to that blossoming and growth and things happening that we would never imagine ourselves. We couldn't set it up. As adults, we would be limiting, but as we step back, that's unlimited. It's unlimiting. Well, how do you then talk to parents about this? I mean, I guess parents coming to you, they look around, they're like, they know what they're getting into.
Yep. That's the first step. Yeah. The first step is being honest, open, and clear about what you're doing, knowing why you're doing it, and being able to share that well. But I take the parents on the journey that I take the staff on, really. We do a lot of sharing, a lot of documentation, a lot of conversations, a lot of videos, and a lot of reminding parents of their own, remember, I know you might have that thing they call childhood amnesia, but let's talk about your childhood. What did you used to do? And that kind of wakes up something inside of them. I could be cheating because we market to a certain type of parent. So I might, I don't know. I have to go to a different school body and try it and see how I do.
Yeah.
But my parents, when we moved to this new location, our playground is all mulch, so there wasn't that tall grass everywhere. Although, I got plans. We started growing wild things. I literally, this is weird. When we moved from our old location, I literally pulled up grass and weeds and sumacs and brought them with me.
Yeah.
I literally got seeds from our wildflowers and threw them all around.
Nice.
So I think we're gonna have some surprises this spring.
That's right.
But when we first moved here, our kids would come after we were closed for quarantine for a while. They came back and the parents were like, okay, yeah. And then as the kids started making it their own and more loose parts were added and it turned into a total junkyard, my parents are weirdos because they're like, now it looks like Discovery. Like they're happy that it's messy. They're happy that they've got a junkyard. And I think the parents that I've attracted have always been those parents, but it's been 8 years of us in this community with me making it clear that we look like this on purpose.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
We're doing this with intention. This isn't because we're just the trashy school. I had one dad once, he said he passed our school over and over and over, and his kids would beg, can I go in there? Can I go in there? And he was like, no, you can't go in there. It's a dog park. He thought it was a dog park because we had all the tires and all the different things to climb up. He was like, we don't have a dog. You can't go in there. And then he said one day he noticed, he read the sign and he ended up signing his kids up, but he was like, they just knew they wanted to play in there. So that was funny.
That is very funny. It's been striking me that, like you said, it's that you're doing it mindfully. And in some ways, best practice and worst practice, they could almost look the same, but the difference is that you're doing it on purpose. This is mindful. This is right. And when I've talked to licensing, I want to get into this subject. when I talk to licensing, like at the state level, I did some interviews for the book, and I'm going to be doing a book tour with some other licensing people. That's what they say. They know that risk is important. They're saying that children need to have access to that, but you have to do it mindfully and through documentation, or basically you're having to prove that this is not worst practice, this is best practice. And so it's really communicating that, because weeds or junk or rock or all that kind of stuff, if it could be they have to look out for that. So they have to make the distinction. Does this person know what they're doing, or they don't know what they're doing?
And I think that's the difference. When I make sure to explain that with my licensing person.
Well, okay. So people would look at your stuff in here and say,
they always say,
that's going to come to everybody's mind. Everybody I present to, whatever. License, because everyone's got horror stories of like licensors wouldn't let me have a spoon in the sand area or blah blah blah. But okay, so how you are doing like this? So
in my 8 years in this town, I've had 4 different licensing specialists. I'm always mad when they leave, because I'm like, you get me. I don't know who I'm gonna get next. But because I've had 4 and they're very different, there must be something in the way that I'm communicating with them that's helping them to get what we're doing. So my first one was very new. So that was easy because she was very new. I got to show her.
She's moldable.
Yes, that's the word. That's the word I was trying to avoid. That was the word I was trying to avoid. My second one was an old veteran, and she was, you couldn't see an emotion. I didn't know what she was thinking. And the way that I unlocked the key to her was we started talking about her own boys, her kids. And I think what that did was take her away from the licensor role and more of a human role of a parent of children, and remembering what children really need and how her children really played. And she never complained about anything we were doing, but I think it's because she could pull from that space. And I will never forget the day that she walked in. We were doing, we were inside, and we were doing, the children were interested in making a cake. And we were like, well, let's explore all the parts to making a cake. So we did water, and then we did flour. And the day that we did flour, we literally had white, it was a mistake. It was a good mistake. I do it again. But we had white residue everywhere, the whole place. The kids were white. It was stuff. It was just like, okay. And in walks the licensing specialist.
Right on cue.
Yeah, I'm thinking, she's going to say something about this not being okay. And at this point, she had been there a couple times, and she just walks through. You guys must have had a lot of fun today because we had that relationship, She knows first and foremost that we are there for the best interest of the children. When they know that, there's a sense of trust. And a sense of what's the word I'm looking for? They believe that what you're doing is in the best interest, because they know they know from communicating with you and seeing you with the children that you love them. I had another specialist, my next specialist after she left, tell me, between you and me, this is where I would bring my kids. This is where I would bring my kids. She said she goes to places and people think we want to see compliance, so they make the kids sit down and be quiet. People think that we want to see order, so they have the place clean and perfect. And in reality, a lot of these specialists have children. Like, they're not aliens that we sometimes feel like they can be so different. So just having an authentic relationship with them, I feel like it's all the same with staff, the same with parents, the same with licensing. Just an authentic relationship and the ability to communicate why, communicate why you're doing these things, communicate how they're beneficial, and prove it. And when they see it, there's just no denying it. They can't give you an argument to say that makes sense against it, right? So a big pushback I had to have, and probably the only one ever, was when my licensing specialist came. This was the stern one. When she came and the kids were climbing, we used to have a 6-foot fence. And you know how the fences have like a railing about 2 feet off the ground, maybe. and the kids were scaling the fence. Some of them were barefoot, and they were scaling along the fence. And this was like a rite of passage. When you were 2, you couldn't do it because you just couldn't get up there. And we don't put them up on stuff. So by the time you figured it out and you're scaling, they're pretty skilled because they've used every single intricate little muscle to figure out how to get up there. So she comes and they're scaling along the fence. We've got full-fledged junk everywhere.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh, they're gonna have to get down." And I could have said, "All right, guys, get down," because sometimes it's easier.
Sure.
Something inside of me just said, "Why?" And she's, "Because they can fall." And I said, "And it's 2 feet off the ground. Like, yeah, they could fall." And I said, "But they're pretty skilled." And I tried to explain to her it's a rite of passage. They've worked all their muscles. And she just was like, "Okay, well, let me talk to she watched them for a little bit and they were skilled." And she said, I said, "No one has ever fallen. It's been all these years." She said, "Well, any day someone can fall." And I was like, "You're right. I can see they can fall. But really, what's the worst that can happen?" So she said she would talk to her supervisor, which would have never happened if I didn't push back a little bit. I was respectful.
Mm-hmm.
I asked real questions like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you worried? What are you worried about? How can I help you not worry about that anymore? And then she went to her supervisor because I also knew the rule. I know how high the kids are allowed to climb, and their feet on a platform have to be under 7 feet. So I knew that this 2-foot shimmy around the fence was not breaking any rules. So that helps too, to know the rules.
Sure.
And her supervisor told her it was allowed. And she emailed me back or called me back later that day and told me. And, so I think sometimes we have to engage in the dialogue instead of just accepting things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a fight. It should be a positive relationship, but engage in the dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I like that idea of thinking of them as human beings,
Mm-hmm.
and that they have the same goals that we do of wanting children to thrive and be healthy and reach their full potentials, and treat them that way. And then the idea of like, well, you're helping them work their way through it and see, and because they're probably seeing very different things at your center than they're seeing at the other center, both in terms of the aesthetics, but then when they really look again, when they look at a bubble, when they stand and look at the bubble, they see the rich, amazing, dynamic things that are going on too. And they see
one of my licensing specialists said, "These are the happiest children that I've seen. These are the happiest children that I've seen." And I hopefully that them seeing this can help inform how they are with other programs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they can encourage other programs to allow a little bit more freedom and loosen up a little bit in other areas that will help. Just the idea of making room for children in childhood. Maybe that could spread those ways of thinking is what my hope is.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you're acting as a model of like, okay, hey, look at this. This is something different. It's funny because it's something different, and yet if you think back to our childhoods, it's like, no, it's kind of tapping the thread of it's old, it's old, and yet it's new.
Mm-hmm. That's the joy of it, right? Every day it's the same. It's play, but it's new. Every day it's new. Mm-hmm. For the children and for me. Every day it's new, and I always say, like, how come it excites me the same way today as it did yesterday, and it will tomorrow. It's magic.
You found your place. You found your lane. Yeah. Okay, here's a question for you. When are you getting chickens, Kisha? Where are your chickens?
Oh my gosh, I want chickens so badly. I want chickens, but I don't want to be the chicken caretaker. So I have to hire someone who is a good chicken person. I want to just play with them. I don't want to have to do the chicken care part. So
yeah.
there's a thing in this town. Okay, we're in the ag reserve, farm town, all that stuff. But there's some crazy ordinance about not having chickens within the town limits. So there must be, I have to look at the red tape because I think it's residential and I wouldn't be that. So let me work on that. I already scoped out the neighbor's outhouse, and the kids and I went and walked. We were like on our property line, and we looked at it, and we were like, that will be a good place for chickens to live. We have a dream. So we'll see.
All right.
I wished for a creek and some trees. And I got some trees.
I know. Well, I was just going to ask that.
Oh.
So, okay. So with this new place, you have your own little woods. You have your own little
Yes.
forest school. What's the story on that? And what have you learned in that process?
Well, we used to take the kids to the forest. We used to take them to the forest. I had a little bus. We take them to the forest on Wednesdays and spend the day there. Because we had our little corner of wild sumac trees in our yard, but the forest was a little different. Mm-hmm. So I always, that's what part of the dream, right? To have some forest. So this new location, if you ever come here, you're going to laugh because it's literally a patch of trees. It really is. Mm-hmm. A patch of trees. And I had someone come and carve out a pathway through it in a clearing. Okay. And we made our own little forest. And like I said, when you're a child, things don't have to be, I would love to have acres. That would be awesome. But I don't. And you can still experience the same nature. You can still climb trees. You can still find bugs. You can still, climb through the weeds. You can still avoid the poison ivy and all those things. So the kids are just there. It's wonderful to watch them experience the space in different seasons and to just have the time to notice things without an adult trying to teach them, hey, look at that. Just trusting that they're going to notice things, and watching how different children notice things has been really a joy for me.
I like that. Yeah. And it's like it's kids' acres.
Yes.
It's like the scale is different. For those kids, that is acres and acres, and it's different every day and every season. Yeah. Well, Kisha, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel like you're turning the world right side up, and such a model for other people, and how they see all that you're doing and they think, okay, I don't know if I can do all that, but I can start to inch their way into that direction. And then they can see the beauty and the benefit of doing that. And even in themselves as teachers and as the adult caregiver, to be like, oh, actually this is incredible, and I can help this magical thing happen.
Yes, it's refreshing.
Yeah.
Magical. Well, thank you so much too, Rusty. Thank you for this book. It's awesome.
Oh, you're welcome.
Everybody get it.
All right. Yeah, everybody get it.
Everybody get it.
Good. All right. Well, let's keep in touch.
Yep.
I love seeing the pictures and the conversations, and thanks for everything that you do.
Thank you so much for your work, Rusty.
Yep. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.